Good day, viewers. Welcome to City of David Atlanta studio. This morning, we'll be talking about nurturing greatness in children. I have with me this morning in the studio two great professionals and two teachers of the Dunamis Church to discuss nurturing greatness in our children. I have the head of strategy, Dunamis Church, Jumoke Onikoyi, with me.
Thank you for having me.
And the head of ministry, Dr. Chidi Nwachukwu.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So we'll be talking about greatness in our children. What does the word greatness mean to you? I know different people have different views about the word greatness. I'll go first with Dr. Chidi. Can you explain in few sentences what the word greatness means to you?
In a simple word, it means excellence, going beyond expectation.
That's right.
How do we get our children to go beyond expectation in all things, religious and social and economic and all sort of things? So to do that requires a lot of strength, a lot of practice. I'll stop there till we get further.
That's good. So simply stated, greatness means excellence, going above expectation. That's important. So Ms. Jumoke, my question to you is, do you think greatness is an individual thing or is generic? Can you explain what it means to you?
I think everybody created by God has a seed of greatness in them.
That's right.
The ability to achieve it is now dependent on environmental factors or things that they're exposed to.
That's right.
William Shakespeare rightly said that some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. So I think, in my interpretation, everybody has a seed of greatness. There's a unique plan and mandate that God has put in every person.
That's right.
There's a purpose for which God has created each individual. And the ability to achieve that, like I said, will depend on the things that they're exposed to. So for some people that you say, oh, they're born great, it's because they have a natural inclination to always want to achieve high standards. So they set high goals for themselves, and they have a self-motivation to achieve those goals. They're naturally gifted, they're naturally talented.
That's
and for
right.
some people, they have to be pushed into it by the help of their parents, the society, or the people they come across.
That's really, really important. My key takeaway from what you just said, every child has a purpose and every child has a gift. They exhibit their gift or they unwrap their gift at different points of their life. That is really important. And I remembered while you were explaining greatness, you talked about purpose. Is it possible for parents, what do you think it's possible for parents to be aware of their child's purpose? Can they create awareness in their children?
Yes, you can create the awareness, because purpose in itself is a concept that even adults grapple with. So the earlier you do it, the better. When you see your child exhibiting some traits, you link it to why they were created for the glory of God. This is tying it into church now, because we're talking about raising godly leaders,
that's right,
kingdom-minded children. Mm-hmm. So every gift that child has, there are ways that you can tie it. So when you start to see the child exhibit some qualities in them, you encourage them in that area and you link it to the purpose for which God has created them. That's one way of doing it. And some other way is telling them some stories in the Bible of other people that God had a specific purpose for their lives and they were able to achieve that purpose. For instance, you talk about Samson, you talk about Jesus, and even Jeremiah. So reading scriptures to them is another way to let them know that you have a purpose. Another way of letting them know is by your own occupation, what you do, either in the secular world or in the church, making them understand that that is important.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Chidi, I know you want to add one or two things in a brief statement. Can you expatiate or add your points?
There's something I wanted to see if we can discuss as a group and clarify it for our viewers. So are we saying that purpose has the same meaning as greatness? Is that what?
From my point of view, from my understanding, I don't think purpose and greatness are the same thing. Purpose is, what are you here for? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? That is what I understand about purpose. But like we rightly said, and like you rightly said, it's a universal. Everybody has different views to what it means, what greatness and what purpose means. So that's why we are trying to clarify, so that we can all talk about it and have a clear standpoint to what it is.
What I think is this. I think greatness and purpose are linked. Now, there's a difference between success and greatness. Success, you achieve your goals and your objectives, but greatness is going far beyond that. So there's some people that are successful, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're great. But in the eyes of God and by our standards, when you fulfill your purpose in life, then you can say that you have attained greatness. So its purpose goes beyond what is for you. It goes to the people around you, what you emanate to them, you being in that, on that level or pedestal.
Yeah, I think there's a point in that. But, there's people who can achieve purpose, but yet they did not achieve greatness. Because they
Can you expatiate on that?
Okay, yeah, I think so, because there are people who can achieve the purpose that they were called to, but they did not extend that purpose to the level that it's usable beyond a certain mark.
I understand what you're trying to say, Mr. Chidi, but for the purpose of this team, my focus is, at what age do you think parents should start being aware or start creating awareness in their children? I would want you to focus on maybe the languages, customized activities, the vocabularies, and all those things that can help a child to become great.
I think as soon as the child understands language, that means you can talk to the child and the child comprehends you. You start to create a God awareness in that child. So you make them understand that they have unique abilities and talents. So for a 3-year-old, for instance, it could come in song, helping them understand that God created them in the way they are. Then you move on to whichever level it is. If it's lower elementary, a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, a language a 6-year-old or 7-year-old will understand is different from what a 3-year-old will understand.
That's right.
So you have to go by their age level. What you think they can, like another example is when they show their abilities, I gave that example earlier on, like a child draws very well, or is a good orator, he talks a lot, or he talks about things, or can explain himself. You start to tell that child, how can you use this for God's glory? So that child starts to make connections in their head or in their minds about this gifting I have was given to me by God, and there are ways that I can use it, not just for myself, but also to glorify God. So
That's
you can
right.
give an example to that child. Oh, you draw very well. How about we draw something we make a card for somebody who is ill in the hospital, or we make a card for a friend that you can send to a friend, or even in church, draw something that you can put up in your class in church. Something like that, you do things like that to create an awareness in that child. Everything that I have is given to me by God. Every skill, every ability, every gift I have was given to me by God. And that way, the child starts to make those connections.
That's really, really important. So age-appropriate activities are important. And just to add to what you said, there are a lot of examples in the Bible that we can use to help our children achieve greatness. Just like some few weeks ago, I was discussing with my child, the 6-year-old, see, even in the Bible, an 8-year-old was a king. He was a king at 8 years old. So there's no limit. Yes. I mean, it's in the Bible. So we can use those teachable moments to teach our children that greatness doesn't have to be when you're old or when you're this. It starts from now. So once you start creating such awareness to them, they want to be who God really wants them to be.
I have an 8-year-old, so I'm going to tell him he's going to be king over.
Yes, you sure can be. Even in school, that people tell you that you can't be something. No, you don't take that, because you have examples in the Bible, and you can always refer to that. If somebody can be this at this age, then I also can be. So you just start working towards achieving that.
That is absolutely correct. But remember that before that child became king, there were layers and layers of support.
That's right.
Where does that support come from? And I also want to piggyback on what Ms. Jumoke stated earlier. Yes, our children will be great. They will do things, but you have to, when you understand the purpose and you're able to use that purpose to benefit others, when you use that purpose to the greatest advantage, not only for you, but beyond your immediate family, to extend to the world. That's when we
talk about greatness. Thank you so much for that explanation. So now I want us to talk a little bit more about the role of parents, the role of the church and family to achieve greatness in our children. Miss Onikoyi, I would ask you, do you think the church have it all? I know the church, when we talk about godly or spiritual things, we are most times limited to the church, that the church has that responsibility. But do you think in your own view, the church has it all?
My simple answer to that is no.
Can you tell us why?
Yes, I will. Thank you in a minute. It's a popular saying, there's a popular saying that it takes a village.
To raise a child.
It takes a village to do everything. On average, a child will spend 2 hours in church in a week. There are 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and we can do the math. So children have only 2 hours that they're exposed to the teachers in church. Now, parents, I believe, it's not my quote, but are the first and the best teachers a child has.
That's right.
So what you do at home is very important. If the child comes to church and is being taught, you have to reinforce those lessons at home. You have to water it. You have to make sure that the child understands those concepts at their level, break it down to them, make sure they're able to live it out. They're able to apply it in their day-to-day activities. Now, when we were much younger, we had opportunities to glean because we would always go to church. You go to church on Sunday, you go on Friday, you go on Wednesday. So there were so many opportunities for us to glean from those programs. But nowadays, children just come to church and that's it. Once Sunday is over, that's it. There's no Bible reading at home.
I know you have a lot to say. If I give you the whole day, I know we'll be here, but we have to be conscious of time. Dr. Wachiko, would you want to add one or two things to what she has said about the role of the family in raising godly children?
Yes, like she stated, I think that charity begins at home. The home has a very important place in raising the child. Also, she talks about it takes a village to raise a child, which means that the community is also part of it. But unfortunately, our community now have very divergent views on certain things that the church holds very dear. So there's a fine line there to be very mindful of, in addition to, looking at the media culture and see how that impacts your children. But I do think that, seriously, that the church, the home, and the community all joined together has a role to play.
I equally agree with you both. The church cannot do it alone. And one of the ways, like Ms. Onika, you were saying about you have to reinforce it. But if you as a parent, you are not involved in your child, you will not even be able to reinforce it. What we're asking is, be part of these children. When they come to church or when we do our online meetings, log in with them once in a while, sit down with them. It only takes 30 minutes, 40 minutes for each class to have their classes. Sit down with them, listen to what we teach them, so that when you have your maybe personal time or family time together, you can help reinforce all those things. Or you can give clarity to some of it, because there are sometimes that we would explain it to them, they might not understand it, but when it's coming from you as their parent, they grasp it better. So we encourage you to be involved in everything we teach them. Once in a while, come to Dunamis Church. We have our manuals. You can see what we teach them, so that when they go home, because if you are not involved and you ask your child, what did you learn in church today, and they tell you something else, you won't even know what they were taught. So if you are involved and you go through our manuals with us, log in once in a while with them, it will also equally help you to help your child grow better.
And I wanted to add, coming very soon, we're going to have the children's page.
Woohoo!
We are creating.
That's right.
We're creating a website, right?
Yes.
So in our website, you will have the opportunity to go there
And
look at
see.
our programs, look at what is being taught.
That's good.
Look at some activities that you can do with your child at home. We hope that parents will be involved. We encourage parents to be involved actively in the lives of their children, not only for church, but in every aspect of their lives.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Nwachukwu. As a parent who leads in the Dunamis Church and has years of experience in the educational field, do you think it's practical to be involved with your child? Because I know the schedule in America is crazy. Everybody is going their own route, trying to make ends meet. But do you think there's still an opportunity to raise godly children.
Yes, absolutely. For me, I can speak of myself, and I know that I represent most fathers. I leave my house every day at 5:30 in the morning. I come back at 4:30. Some of the things I have to do, my wife helps me out to do that, like to get the children ready for their Zoom classes daily. And when I come home, I make sure that their homeworks are done. So I think that very much so that we can balance our professional lives with our family and religious obligations. How do you do that? You have to make sure that you have a plan. You have to have a plan. You have to create schedules that are tenable. You have to keep to your words. When you tell your children, I'm going to be back at 5 o'clock, don't stop and talk to John on the way, and stop to check your tires as you're coming back home. And then when you look at your time, you're about 1 hour late. And sometimes we do that. We come home, we don't apologize to our children for doing that. We need to make sure that in this time and day, it's very critical that you have a plan for everything. Have a plan.
Thank you so much for that. Planning is important in raising our children. Ms. Jumoke, can you give us practical tips as a mother of young boys? Can you give us practical tips on how we can raise godly children? Can you share some examples?
I think parenting is ever evolving. So the methods you used last year might not work this year. And you have to constantly change and evolve with the times. You have to learn new methods and new strategies. So it's one of the jobs where you're constantly learning as you go. Now, in my case, one of the things or some of the things that I do is I understand that what I model to my children is very important. So I'm very conscious of that. I have to show it to them. They say monkey do. Monkey see, monkey do. Whatever you show them, that is what they do. You cannot expect that we're yelling at the children and we wonder why they're yelling at other people or at their siblings. Another thing is to get mentors and friends that you talk to. You can have an older person in your life who has raised two children, who you see has children that are successful, or you've seen how they raise them, and then ask them questions, talk to them, get encouraged by them. Give yourself grace. You're going to make mistakes as a parent. Like children make mistakes. Give them grace. Understand that you have to be patient. I try to be patient with my children, though it's always a long streak, but I try to be patient with them.
Trust me.
And I give myself grace, and I understand that this will pass. I have to repeat things over and over again for them to get it, but that is what training entails.
Thank you so much for that. It's one key takeaway I want you to learn from viewers at home. One thing is modeling is important in raising your child. You cannot be talking to your child about forgiveness or patience, and you are not doing the same. So be gracious. Let them see you do it. Let them see it. They're looking at you. They're watching you. So it's really, really important. Even when you're teaching them about Christian values or home values, if they don't see you do it, it's difficult for them. Be gracious to your children and help them be the best they can be.
There's one thing that Ms. Jumoke forgot to mention, and I know that, I have to say it anyway, because we forgot books. A lot of our people do not like to read.
That's right.
Do not like to read.
Yeah.
Very, very important. There are books out there
That can help.
people who have done it before you. You just read. When you read a book, somebody is pouring out his or her inner self to you and telling you, hey, this is how I did it. So read, read, read. And when you read, guess what? You talked about modeling. You're modeling how to read for your children. So read to find out how you can parent your children. There are people who have done it before you, so it's not like rocket science. You will learn along the way.
Thank you so much both for your time today. Viewers at home, I hope you've been richly blessed. I know there's so much to say, but right now we just have to get going. One of the things, I'll just summarize everything we've talked about today that I think is important is modeling is important to your children. Be involved. Be engaged with them. Listen to them. Talk to them. Trust them. Let them be free with you to ask you any questions. But above all, I know that modeling is really, really important and being involved. I know we've said a lot today, and I know there's still more insight that we want to pour out. But as we conclude this session, I want you to give us 2 practical tips to help parents become more effective and involving in their children. Mr. Chidi, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Folakemi. I think that one of the crippling factors for most of us Africans is that we dwell so much on culture. We have this culture that marginalizes children. We don't allow our children to express themselves, and we don't create the culture of negotiation where we find out the point from where our children are coming when we are discussing with them, or sometimes when they raise an issue, we just hush them. Shut up! Don't talk like that. It's not okay.
I know that's an African thing. We don't let our children talk. It's what we want them to do,
exactly.
And it's
so
not good for
we
them.
We need to understand that our children can be self-expressive. They can express themselves, and there is no topic that is off limit. We talk about it and see how we can make some compromise. And where we can't, we explain why we cannot. So there's a democratic kind of process in decision making, and we can allow our children to see those.
Wow, that's really, really important to know that we can be democratic in raising our children. Ms. Onikoyi, would you want to say 1 or 2 things?
Yes, it's very interesting that Dr. Nwachukwu said that as a man, a lot of times the men in the home are very authoritarian. It's what I say that goes. I'm the head of this family, and that's it. So women are always left to be the ones negotiating with the children or trying to explain why they're saying something a certain way or doing something a certain way. So thank you very much for that, I'm sure.
It's a new day. It's a new day.
Yes.
Men should play more roles. For instance, this morning I just had to cook breakfast because my wife is at work. Let us take those roles. Let us drop this culture thing and see how we can create an understanding with our kids. It's one way of raising kids and raising effective children.
I'm glad that is coming from a man. So men can cook. It's not just the women that can cook. Absolutely, that's really, really good. So thank you so much, guys, for coming into the studio this morning. I know there's a lot you still want to say, but in our next segment, I hope you viewers are looking forward to that next segment where we can learn practical tips. I know this is a busy time in our lives, but I appreciate you guys coming, making out time this morning to help viewers at home understand their involvement in raising godly leaders. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Dr. Nwachukwu. Thank you, Ms. Chumoke. Nice to have you again. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.